Coming up on today's show, we're going to recap the Falcons head coach interview list, the names they have requested, and the interviews they have completed. And then we'll talk about the biggest story in the NFL, which is insert team, trade for Dak Prescott. So we'll talk about whether or not it makes sense for the Falcons to pursue Dak. But let's start off with the interview news here. No real rumors over the last 72 hours or so. Just some hard-hitting news as the Falcons have completed 5 interviews so far. Brian Callahan, Mike Macdonald, Steve Wilks, Ejiro Evero, and Anthony Weaver. Now, all these teams are either not in the playoffs or you're like the Ravens or the 49ers and you had a wild card round bye, which meant the Falcons were able to conduct a virtual interview with those coaches. Now, Atlanta has also requested 5 interviews with former Raiders head coach, interim head coach Antonio Pierce, Texans offensive coordinator Bobby Slowik, who is probably the hottest OC name right now after Ben Johnson, the Lions offensive coordinator, along with the Lions defensive coordinator Aaron Glenn, and then finally a familiar name in ATL, Rams DC Raheem Morris. So I fully expect the DC job and Raheem Morris for the Rams to get green-lighted to have an interview with the Falcons. Not so sure about Antonio Pierce because the Raiders probably want to keep him, but who knows? Maybe they're going to hold out for Harbaugh. Bobby Slowik is going to get a lot of attention, especially what he's doing with a rookie QB who's already off to the divisional round of the playoffs. But when it comes down to who the Falcons are going to hire, I don't think, and that's a key word, think, Arthur Blank goes for the first-time head coach route for a 6th straight time. Don't you think he's going to want to go down the established route since it, I wouldn't say epically failed the previous 5 times. Like he got a Super Bowl appearance out of Dan Quinn. He got some winning years out of Mike Smith, but didn't work out with Art, didn't work out with Bobby Petrino, although he had college head coaching experience, but it's really not the same. So ultimately, I want to believe that Arthur Blank is going to correct the issues from the past, which is hiring a coach with no head coaching experience just really has not worked out very well for Atlanta. So who out there has previous head coaching experience? Bill Belichick, who we have already seen tons of rumors being linked to the Falcons. Antonio Pierce for the Raiders. If the Raiders were to go get Jim Harbaugh or they hire someone else, maybe the Falcons decide one man's trash is another man's treasure. We will welcome Pierce to Atlanta with open arms. Jim Harbaugh, he was with the 49ers. And of course, he had some great years in the Bay Area. 4 seasons, 3 NFC championship appearances, 1 Super Bowl loss. So Jim Harbaugh to the Falcons has not been discussed very much, but with J.J. McCarthy going to the draft, maybe that's a sign that Harbaugh is leaving Michigan, and maybe the Falcons with a top 10 pick and a rich owner is where Harbaugh wants to land. I don't know. Raheem Morris, he had a head coaching stint briefly with the Buccaneers and then interim with Atlanta, so he definitely has some experience and can learn from his mistakes as a head coach. And then finally, Steve Wilks, who was a bit of a disaster when he was the 49ers, not 49ers DC, the Arizona Cardinals head coach. Remember, that was the Josh Rosen season before they got Kyler Murray. Now, I understand there was some hesitancy of all these guys failed, except for Belichick, and Harbaugh. But a lot of other previous head coaches have failed. Why do we want Steve Wilks or Raheem Morris? Well, Bill Belichick failed before New England. He was the Browns head coach, and he was their last head coach to get him a playoff win before Kevin Stefanski, okay? Before that, you've got Pete Carroll. Let's say Steve Carroll. Pete Carroll, before being the Seahawks head coach, didn't work out very well in New England for him. So there are a lot of coaches who, in their second go-around, learn from their mistakes, apply them to their next job, and had a lot of success. Now, if I'm ranking the 10 head coach interviews either the Falcons have completed or requested, here's how I would rank them. Ben Johnson at number 1. The Lions OC has been the hottest name for a year at this point. Bobby Slowik has just flown up the rankings, especially after that Houston playoff win, where the Texans offense was carving up a very good Browns defense. Raheem Morris, I like Raheem Morris's defense a lot, and I like the experience, and I'm willing to give him a second shot. Steve Wilks at number 4 isn't a big reflection of I love Steve Wilks. It's more of I'm not crazy about the other candidates. Brian Callahan, longtime offensive coordinator, just not really sure what he would look like without Joe Burrow and Jamar Chase, along with having an offensive-minded coach like Zach Taylor already above him. Anthony Weaver, defensive line coach. He's produced a lot of great defensive linemen in Baltimore. The Ravens always seem to be like a factory for washed-up 30-year-old defensive ends like Calais Campbell or Jadeveon Clowney to go out there and have career seasons. Mike Macdonald is just too young to be given a head coaching gig in my eyes with very little NFL experience. Aaron Glenn's defense was awful last year. It got better this year, but I'm not going to want to hand over the keys to the kingdom for a DC that did an abysmal job in 2022. Evero, I go back and forth on Evero. He had a really good year with Denver when they were awful under Nathaniel Hackett. But this past season in Carolina, the Panthers' defense was better than maybe what people think it would be just for a 2-win ball club. But I'm still not jumping up and down about Evero. And then Antonio Pierce I have at number 10. The reason being is I feel like Antonio Pierce, the Raiders caught lightning in a bottle with Pierce. And so I don't know if that magic can carry over to another team. But let me know who you think the next head coach will be. Scroll on down. This is the pinned comment. Drop your prediction. When the Falcons inevitably hire a head coach, I'm going to go back to this video, and I'm going to look at the comments, and I'm going to see who got it right, and I'm going to give a shout-out to whoever got the correct head coach predicted. So scroll on down. Don't be afraid, and shoot your shot. Now let's talk about some rumors here, because Bill Belichick is still on the market. Things are a bit quiet from his end, but the Dallas Cowboys job might be open by the time you are already watching this video. After another playoff collapse by Mike McCarthy and the Cowboys, a third straight 12-win season where they ultimately are golfing way sooner than they anticipated, I would not be surprised at all if Jerry Jones goes, I'm getting old. We've got a head coach that can win 12 games, but cannot get his team ready for the postseason. And there's a guy named Bill Belichick who's on the street right now with 6 Lombardis as a head coach. Maybe he can come into Dallas, take a roster that doesn't need improving, that just won 12 regular season games, and just get us over that hurdle, which is the postseason. Something Mike McCarthy has struggled in throughout his entire NFL career, minus, of course, one Super Bowl victory with the Green Bay Packers. So this would obviously throw a wrench into Arthur Blank's plans, because I'm not sure Arthur Blank anticipated the Dallas Cowboys job opening up. And if it does open up, and I'm Bill Belichick, 12-win Cowboys, 7-win Falcons. I think we know which side he's going to sway to. And if that does happen, well, Arthur Blank's plan A might go out the window, and then we're going to find out what plan B is. Now, next up on the show, we're going to talk about another member of the Dallas Cowboys. Could Dak Prescott be traded? Just like Mike McCarthy after another postseason collapse, maybe Dallas decides, you know what, Dak is great for the regular season, but we want to find a guy that can get us a Super Bowl trophy, and unfortunately, we don't think that's number 4. But really quickly, Falcons Today is sponsored by Game Time. You should not have to worry when you're buying tickets to your next big event. Game Time is the fast and easy way to buy tickets for all the sports, music, comedy, and theater events near you. So if you want to catch, say, an upcoming NFL playoff game, whether it's divisional or wild card or AFC or NFC championship game, you can go to Game Time and you can select whatever playoff game you want, and then you're on your way to watch some really good football, hopefully. Or maybe you're in Atlanta and you want to go catch an Atlanta Hawks game, or you want to get ready for the Braves season coming up and you want to go down and watch a spring training game, or wait for their home opener, season opener in just a few short weeks. Whatever it is, make sure you download the Game Time app, create an account, and then enter the code FalconsChat for $20 off. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code FalconsChat for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply, but make sure you download Game Time today. That way you are hooked up with the best possible tickets at the last possible moment if needed. Once again, that's Game Time. Last minute tickets, lowest price guaranteed. All of that information is in the comments and description of today's video. Let's switch gears and let's talk about Dak Prescott, because the Falcons are not only in the business of a new head coach, they are absolutely in the business of a new starting QB. And Dak on Sunday, after losing to the Green Bay Packers 48-32, fell to 2-5 in the postseason. Now, he is entering the final year of his 4-year, $160 million contract. So you would have to trade for Dak Prescott. He is not a free agent this upcoming offseason. This would be a trade for a quarterback that turns 31 years old in June. Now, it's very hairy and complicated when it comes to trading for Dak Prescott, who is entering the final year of his contract, because it's not going to be cheap for the Dallas Cowboys. They don't have much incentive to move off of Dak Prescott's contract. In fact, his base salary is $29 million. That's what a team will be taking on, which, as far as QB contracts go, that is not expensive at all. But the dead cap hit. I mean, the Atlanta Falcons have the dead cap hit record when they moved on from Matt Ryan to the Colts, and that was just over $40 million. We're talking about adding an extra 20 G's and then some. There's really no savings. Actually, there's negative savings for the Dallas Cowboys if they were to trade Dak Prescott before June 1st. Now, if they do it after June 1st, they can take that dead cap hit and they can split it over the next 2 seasons. But I have never heard of a starting QB getting traded after June 1st. Free agency money is used up by then. The draft is over. This is a very, very big long shot. But financially, it could be done post-June 1. The dead cap hit for the Cowboys, not the Falcons, the Cowboys, is $25 million in 2024. 2025 is $36 million. They've got $34 million in cap savings. Like, after June 1, if the Dallas Cowboys were dying to move on from Dak, they could financially do it. But again, I've never heard of a starting QB at that caliber getting traded after June 1st. Ultimately, as backwards as it might sound, I think the Cowboys are going to end up extending Dak Prescott. I know that sounds crazy to say after his performance on Sunday, but he's got a huge cap hit for 2024, and there's only a few ways you can lower that. You can extend him and spread that money out a little bit. You can add void years, which are like fake years to a contract, but that way you can spread the cap out, but then you don't have the player for that many years. So the Cowboys have already done that once with Dak. I don't know if they want to continue to do that, which is why I think ultimately we're going to see Mike McCarthy get fired, and we're going to see Dak Prescott get extended, which I don't know if Cowboys fans are crazy about, but the only the big 180 that could happen in this is similar to Arthur Blank. You've got a super duper old owner in Jerry Jones who really, really, really wants to win. And I think he wants to show a couple people that he can win a Super Bowl without having a guy named like Jimmy Johnson hanging around. So if he believes Dak Prescott is standing in the way of him getting another Lombardi trophy, and he is okay with eating all that dead money, which the Broncos are about to do that with Russell Wilson to the tune of $85 million, this is what a trade could look like. I don't think this is even actually close to enough for Dak, by the way, because you might think, but the Cowboys are, the Falcons are doing a Cowboys a favor by taking his contract off their hands. It's 1 year left on his deal, and it's a huge dead cap hit, so not really. So what do you do with this trade? Dak Prescott to Atlanta I'm not going to give up Atlanta's 8th overall pick in this year's draft. I don't think that's fair to the Falcons, but I think what's close enough is this year's 2nd round pick, next year's 1st, and next year's 3rd. So ultimately a 1st, a 2nd, and a 3rd, but spread out over the next 2 years. Atlanta would still hold on to their 8th overall pick, which I think is just too valuable to give up for Dak Prescott. But if the Cowboys are not going to budge without a 1st rounder for this year, that could change things. So let me know down in the comment section whether or not you would do this trade. That's going to do it for us on this edition of Falcons Today. I really appreciate everyone that tuned in and watched all the way to the end of the video. So 2 requests. If you're not subscribed, please go ahead and do so. And if you're still watching right now, type me in the comment section. I always love to see who watches all the way to the end of the video. It's a good way to know where the real ones are at. So type me down below if you're still watching.